Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
So I'll just quickly have a revision. Yeah, good morning, ma'am. I'll quickly have a revision of yesterday's class because somehow I was not very comfortable with the way that class had gone yesterday. But still, for the sake of completion, I had to do some things. So yesterday's class, our main discussion was on the applied aspect for this Starling's forces. Okay. So the applied aspect for Starling's forces is a condition called as edema. So what is the definition of edema?
Accumulation of excess fluid in the interstitials.
So accumulation of excess amount of fluid in the interstitial space is called as edema. So the next question which we have to answer is, when is this edema going to happen? Okay, so what are the causes for edema? So what are the causes for edema? So if you have understood this equation, you will realize that if there is any condition which is going to increase this hydrostatic pressure gradient, then edema is going to happen, this remaining constant. Okay, so what are the conditions in which this hydrostatic pressure gradient can increase? This can happen only when you have conditions which are increasing the capillary hydrostatic pressure. So one of the most common conditions where the capillary hydrostatic pressure is increasing is in heart diseases. There is one condition called as congestive cardiac failure. So in this condition called as congestive cardiac failure, capillary hydrostatic pressure is going to increase. The net pressure, what we calculate here, net filtration pressure, it will be greater than normal. More fluid is going to come out into the interstitial space. It is going to result in edema. You are following this sequence, logical sequence or common sense sequence of events. Any doubts here? Okay. So the other condition where the edema can happen is this is normal, this gradient is normal, the hydrostatic pressure gradient is normal, but for some reason the colloidal osmotic pressure gradient has decreased. Okay, and if you remember from our discussion, the single most important factor which determines the colloidal osmotic pressure is the concentration of albumin. So it is albumin which determines. So now common sense tells us that any condition which is going to cause a decrease in albumin, it is going to cause decrease in colloidal osmotic pressure, and then the balance is shifted. Balance between the two forces is shifted, and it is going to result in edema. So now comes the question, what are the factors, conditions in which albumin can decrease? Two things. Either there is decreased production of albumin or excessive loss of albumin from the body. Decreased production of albumin, where is albumin produced? Which organ produces albumin?
Liver.
So any liver disorders where there is an interference in the capability of the liver or capacity of the liver to produce albumin, you are going to have decreased albumin, decreased colloidal osmotic pressure, and edema. So one end stage liver disease is cirrhosis of the liver, where you get decreased albumin production, decreased albumin concentration, and the rest of the events is going to happen. The other condition is albumin production is normal, but excess is being lost from the body. So that happens in a nephrotic syndrome, where something has gone wrong in the glomerular filtration membrane, and because of that, excess proteins are being lost in the body, from the body. Again, same sequence of events. Albumin decreases, concentration of albumin decreases, decrease in colloidal osmotic pressure, the balance between this hydrostatic pressure and colloidal osmotic pressure is going towards this increased hydrostatic pressure, more fluid comes out. The third condition where you can have edema is where there is a generalized malnourishment in the body. Person is not taking sufficient food. Because the person is not taking sufficient food, then obviously the protein is going to decrease, hypoproteinemia, same thing. Then there are other conditions apart from the forces. Okay, one is where for some reason something has gone wrong this capillary wall has become very, very permeable or leaky. Excessive permeability or leakiness. Okay, so increased permeability. In simple words, we can say it has become very leaky. So when the capillary wall becomes excessively leaky, when some substances are released in large quantities, like histamine, bradykinin, these substances will increase the permeability. And when histamine and bradykinin are released, usually in allergic conditions, in allergies, in anaphylactic shock, you are going to get that increased permeability. Again, there is edema. Okay. Then what is the fourth cause for edema? The fourth cause for edema is everything is normal. Okay. The forces gradient is normal. The capillary permeability is normal, but still there is edema. That happens when you see that the lymphatics are blocked. So you remember our discussion on the lymphatics. We saw that in most of the capillaries, at the arterial end, more fluid comes out. At the venous end, less fluid goes back. So slight excess of fluid is there in the interstitial space that is usually cleared by
Lymphatic vessels.
So if the lymphatics are blocked, is there any problem in the lymphatics? So one condition where the lymphatics are damaged or blocked is in mastectomy. After bilateral removal of the breast or removal of the breast, they also dissect out the axillary lymph nodes that can cause edema. Or filariasis. Filarial, that parasite, it has a tendency to go and lodge in the lymphatics. Okay, damage the lymphatics, cause tissue scarring. Interstitial space will be scarred, lymphatics will be scarred, huge swellings are seen of the feet and scrotum. What is that condition called as?
Filariasis.
Filariasis valla lao elephantiasis. Filarial edema is usually also referred to as elephantiasis. Okay, so this is about edema. Then I also told you that clinically edema is classified into two types, two ways of classifying edema. Okay, so you press in the place for 15 seconds and remove your hand. If a depression is formed, we call it as pitting edema. Okay, and if there is no depression formed, we call it as non-pitting edema. So this is how clinically edema is classified. So clinically it is classified into pitting edema and non-pitting edema. Okay. Then we also discussed about shear stress. Okay. So I told you the formula for shear stress. Shear stress gamma is equal to
Neta into dy by dr.
Eta into dy by dr. అదేంటో ఈటా ఏంటో dy by dr ఏంటో చెప్పాలి కదా.
Viscosity
into shear rate.
Viscosity, and this is the shear rate. And what is shear rate?
The rate at which velocity increases when moving towards center.
The shear rate is the rate at which the velocity profile increases from the vessel wall to the center of the lumen of the blood vessel. Okay, so I told you yesterday that I gave examples for shear stress, and I also told you that the shear stress will cause the endothelium to respond and start secreting various substances. It will cause gene transcription in the endothelium and so on. Okay, we had a detailed discussion on viscosity and resistance when we spoke about peripheral resistance. Okay, so I told you that viscosity is mainly determined by hematocrit. What is the other one?
Increase in concentration of
Plasma
proteins. Then
and red cell deformation.
Deformation of
RBC deformability. Okay, so this we discussed in great detail when we spoke about the total peripheral resistance. What is this vascular hindrance? Vascular hindrance is the blood vessels, whether you like it or not, by the virtue of their diameter, they are going to show some resistance to blood flow. They are going to oppose the movement of blood. That is called as vascular hindrance. Okay, so vascular hindrance is maximum in, complete that sentence.
Arterioles.
Small arteries and arterioles. Vascular hindrance is maximum in the small arterioles, small arteries and arterioles. Now coming to this this concept, Farias-Lindquist effect. So what is this Farias-Lindquist effect? To understand about this Farias-Lindquist effect, I'll just show you this diagram. Okay. Now, when you they have done an experiment and they have tried to force blood through a glass viscometer, which is having a same diameter as the blood vessels in an experimental animal. The experimental animal was a dog. Okay. So in the dog, they have dissected out in the hind limb the blood vessels, the artery, the veins, they have dissected out, and they have pushed the blood. Okay. So, right, they have seen the hematocrit, particular hematocrit. They have gone on, they went on to increase the hematocrit by 20, 40, 60, 80% hematocrit. They have taken blood with different values of hematocrit, and they have seen the relative viscosity there. And they have seen that when you are forcing blood with different viscosities in a glass viscometer, the resistance is different. But when you are forcing blood, the same blood with different hematocrit in the hind limb of an experimental animal, the resistance is not so much. So they are wondering why there is a deviation in the behavior from what they are seeing in the lab to what is actually happening in the experiment in reality. Okay, so I will try to tell this in a different way. You forget about this experiment. If you look at the viscosity of the blood, and you see the diameter of some of the blood vessels in the body, if you by doing an experiment with liquids which are having similar viscosity as blood in the lab, they saw that for the same viscosity in smaller and smaller diameter blood vessels, the flow should have almost stopped, because it is impossible for a fluid which is having so much hematocrit and so much viscosity to flow. The resistance will be maximum. But in reality, we know that even in the small diameter blood vessels, this is not happening. Blood is continuing to flow. Then they have analyzed and seen that they have observed something similar happening in the lab, where when the diameter of the blood is less than 100 microns, the hematocrit of the fluid is decreasing. And they are left scratching their head. How is this happening? How is it that when the diameter of the blood vessel or the diameter of the tube which they are using in the experiment, when they are reducing it below 100 microns, the hematocrit goes on decreasing? And this effect was first described by This effect was first described by, this phenomenon was first described by Farias and Lindquist. So as the diameter of the blood vessel decreases, below, there is a cutoff value, below
100
microns, the hematocrit of the blood goes on decreasing. If hematocrit decreases, what should decrease?
Viscosity
Viscosity decrease. If viscosity decreases, what else is going to decrease? Resistance to flow is going to decrease, isn't it? So it is easier for the blood to flow. So what is the next question which you have to answer? How is this happening? How is this happening? How is this phenomenon happening that as the diameter goes on decreasing, the hematocrit of the blood goes on decreasing? Very convenient situation, but how is it happening? So to explain that, they have come up with this model, and it was found to be true. If you see the way blood flows, usually we call it as laminar flow or streamlined flow. In that laminar and or streamlined flow also, blood is a two-phase liquid. One phase is blood is a two-phase fluid. One phase is plasma, other phase is the cellular component. So when blood is flowing, we see that the plasma sticks to the sides of the blood vessel. The cells are flowing in the center. Okay. So whether it is a large diameter blood vessel or a small diameter blood vessel, the same phenomenon we are observing. Plasma is sticking here, this shaded part here, okay, is plasma. And in the center, you can see these are all the cells here. But the another thing that is happening is, whether it is a large diameter blood vessel or a small diameter blood vessel, the thickness of the plasma layer is constant. If the thickness of the plasma layer is constant, what should be decreasing?
Cellular
Components.
You cannot have both to be having the same thickness, is it not? This is not changing here. See, here also it is same, here also the thickness is same. So this is the reason why, as the diameter of the blood vessel goes on decreasing, the hematocrit goes on decreasing, and even though it is such a small diameter of the blood vessel, flow is continuing, it is not stopping. I repeat, when blood flows, what is sticking to the sides? Cells are sticking to the sides, or plasma is sticking to the sides? Plasma is sticking to the sides. What is flowing in the center of the blood vessel?
Cells.
Cells are flowing in the center. Irrespective of the diameter of the blood vessel, what remains constant?
Plasma.
Specifically చెప్పాలి.
Thickness of plasma layer.
Thickness of the plasma layer remains constant. Okay, so cellular component decreases. That is going to cause the decrease in the viscosity. What is the next question I'm going to ask you? How is it that the thickness of weekend phenomenon?
Plasma.
What is the next question?
How is the
How
thickness
is it that the thickness of
plasma?
plasma layer remains constant? And what is the explanation I gave for that?
Plasma.
There is one phenomenon happening called as plasma skimming. Okay, so if you imagine from this blood vessel, if there is a side branch here, okay, so same, this will also gives a side branch of smaller diameter. What is more likely to enter into the side branch? Cells are more likely to enter, or plasma? Plasma, more of plasma entering, less of RBCs entering. So this is called as skimming. Okay, so that could be one explanation why the layer of plasma thickness is constant, irrespective of the size of the blood vessel. Okay. Somehow I don't know, I'm kind of fascinated by this effect. It may not be an absolute explanation for what is going on in the body, but still. Okay. The next thing which we discussed was critical closing pressure. Can anybody tell me what is critical closing pressure? Malla Panchapandavalu entamandi ni adiginattu.
Pressure at which flow ceases in small blood vessels.
Okay, in small blood vessels, below one particular pressure, blood flow will stop. That pressure below which the flow stops or ceases is called as critical closing pressure. Critical closing pressure is equal to 0 or not equal to 0?
Not equal to 0.
What is the reason for this critical closing pressure?
pressure.
Tissue pressure. Okay. So there is a fight going on. See, if this is a blood vessel, right? Inside the blood vessel, pressure will be exerted from inside on the wall. From outside also, the tissues will be exerting some pressure. If the intraluminal pressure is more than the outside pressure, the blood vessel will be patent. If the intraluminal pressure is less than the outside pressure, it will collapse. And that point of collapse, or the pressure at which it collapses, is called as critical closing pressure. So this is the diagram for the critical closing pressure. You can see that this is the flow taking place and this is the pressure. Even though the pressure has not reached zero, before it is reaching zero itself, the flow is stopping. We don't see this happening in straight rigid tubes. Only in the blood vessels which are not straight and which are not rigid, you see this critical closing pressure happening. Okay, the next thing which we discussed was substances can be the movement of substance can be limited by two things. Either it is diffusion limited or it is flow limited. Which substances are diffusion limited? Those substances which come in equilibrium very quickly between the interstitial fluid and the plasma. If it comes in equilibrium very quickly, such substances are said to be flow limited, because you can increase the transport of the substance only by increasing the blood flow. Okay, then you have another substances which is not coming in equilibrium. There is no equilibrium, okay, between the plasma and the interstitial fluid. It does not come in equilibrium. So the only way you can increase the transport of this substance from the plasma into the interstitial fluid or vice versa is by increasing the diffusion rate of that substance. So these substances are said to be diffusion limited. These substances are said to be flow limited. I want you all to do one homework. Nobody does the homework. My students are so great or so lazy, I don't know. Nobody, when I tell homework, they will never bother to go back and read. So go back and look and give me examples of flow limited substances and diffusion limited substances. Okay. So law of Laplace, we had a detailed discussion of law of Laplace when we looked at the surface tension, surfactant and all that. So pressure is equal to, here we write it as E by R. So pressure is inversely proportional to radius. Okay, so smaller blood vessels should have been collapsing or rupturing. It is the law of Laplace which protects them from collapsing or rupturing, for that matter. And in a dilated heart, there is one condition called as dilated cardiomyopathy. The size of the heart is more. The wall thickness has not increased. The chamber volume has increased. So such conditions, we call it as dilation. And that condition is called as dilated cardiomyopathy. In people with excessive dilated hearts, the ventricle has to do more work to generate a particular pressure. So that is because of the application of the law of Laplace. Hypertrophy of the heart is also not good. If the wall thickness increases, the coronary blood flow may not be enough to supply blood to that thick muscle. Okay, so dilated cardiomyopathy is also not good. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is also not good. Okay, normal is better, even though it may be boring sometimes. So with this, I conclude the hemodynamic revision for yesterday's class. I'll just go back quickly from here. I'll start because it's online. That is another excuse you give. The minute things go wrong with the result, all the mummies and daddies will come running, telling it was online, it was offline, we are sitting at home, all nonsense they'll start. Okay. So I told you about the structure of the blood vessel, and we looked at the layers, 3 layers, and what is there in each layer. We looked at the artery, vein, and capillary, and we compared them. We looked at what is the name I gave for this slide. ఏం చెప్పానండి ఇక్కడ? How the pages are being turned. చదవరు. Anybody?
Structure function relationship.
This is called it as structure function relationship. Once it was a main question in Rajiv Gandhi University. How a particular structure in the blood vessel helps it to perform a particular function. This is true for all parts of the body, all organs. Okay. So the aorta and large arteries are called as elastic arteries because there is more of elastic fibers. The arterioles have more smooth muscle in their wall. They are called as resistance vessels. The capillaries are having only one layer, so they are called as exchange vessels. And the veins have got a capacity to store lots of blood without any appreciable increase in the pressure. So they are called as veins are called as
Capacitance vessel.
okay. So we use them. Then we saw where is the total cross-sectional area maximum in capillaries, which part of the vascular system the blood is contained maximum, and that is in the veins. Then we looked at some relationships. Okay. So what is this relationship? Velocity is
Inversely proportional to the total.
Velocity is inversely proportional to total cross-sectional area. So in the capillaries where the velocity is maximum, flow is slowest. So I will put the slide and now I will ask one of you to explain. This one. Chandini, a little loudly, we are not able to hear you.
So, pressure drop is maximum in arterioles, sir.
Why?
Because these are resistant vessels. It has maximum resistance to blood flow.
The pressure drop in the arterial system is maximum in the arterioles. So this is because the arterioles offer the maximum resistance to blood flow. Just a minute, I'll come. Yeah, so this is a diagram. It's a comprehensive diagram. What is this showing? Anybody can they tell me? What is this graph showing? Kalyani 54. G Kalyani Chapama. M Chupistandi. What is this graph trying to tell us?
Velocity pressure relationships.
Tell me, explain.
As
Yeah, we'll take the first two. Is systolic, diastolic anthem. What is happening to that? What is that? Kalyani,
sir,
చెప్పు నువ్వేమో హీమోడైనమిక్స్ ప్రొఫెసర్ మాదిరి వెలాసిటీ ఫ్లో రిలేషన్షిప్ అని చెప్పి ఆపేస్తే ఎలాగా ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేయాలి కదా.
sir,
గివ్ ఇట్ ఎ ట్రై, డజంట్ మ్యాటర్.
yes. The pressure grows on decreasing.
Where is the pressure drop maximum?
Arterioles.
Okay, then next, what else? What does the dashed line show you?
Completely decreases.
Dashed line ఏం చూపిస్తుందమ్మా? What is TA? Anybody else? Irfana.
Total cross section.
Irfana Nikat. 47.
Yes, sir.
What is this TA? Anybody else? What is the TA?
It's a total cross section.
Total cross-sectional area.
So lower panel, what is it showing?
Relative resistance.
Yeah. Relative resistance is maximum in the arterioles.
Arterioles.
Velocity drop is also maximum in the
Arterioles.
Okay. Then this one.
So contraction of vascular smooth muscle
Contraction
by calcium influx,
smooth muscle.
relaxation by calcium sparks.
Yeah. So finally, what is the take-home message from this? No, somebody else started. Who's that girl who started?
So calcium, when influxed, it leads to contraction, and the calcium influx, which causes local calcium sparks, it leads to K plus efflux that leads to the relaxation.
Who is this?
So Bhavna.
Okay. So the summary, like she told, is calcium at a high concentration will cause contraction. Calcium at localized sparks will cause relaxation. Okay, so same calcium is causing both contraction and relaxation. So that explanation I will. And what is this cell called as?
Vascular smooth muscle.
Vascular smooth muscle cell. This cell is called as vascular smooth muscle cell. What is a similar cell in the respiratory system? What is it called as?
Bronchial smooth muscle cell.
In the respiratory system, it is called as bronchial smooth. Idento tondaraga cheppala.
Winckel's effect.
So tell me the whole thing.
Sir, which theater goes?
Which vessels are called as Winckel vessels?
Aorta and large arteries.
What is the other name for the Winckel effect?
Elastic
Other name for the Winckel effect?
recoiling effect.
Inka. How many times I have to ask you this? It is also called as vis a tergo. One of the reason, force from behind. Okay, what is the difference between angiogenesis and vasculogenesis?
Angiogen.
The formation of blood vessels from the existing ones is angiogenesis.
And what is vasculogenesis, man?
It is from Formation of blood vessels from the angioblasters.
Okay, any factor here which I told you which helps in the regulation?
It's a vascular endothelial growth factor, sir.
Yeah, okay. There is one substance which is called as vascular endothelial growth factor, which is going to cause this regulation. And why should we know about angiogenesis and vasculogenesis?
For growth and maturation everywhere, sir. And it also causes some cancers, tumors.
It causes some cancers.
So during cancers, this process happens, like new blood vessels are forming to supply the cells fast growing.
In normal people, where is it? When is it happening?
So during menstruation, the
wound healing
growth of
Wound healing, growth. Must you tell growth and development? No. What is this?
plethysmography
What is it used for?
Blood volume measurement.
to measure the blood volume.
Any modification you can do in this?
indirect. Yes, sir.
Venous occlusion.
Occlusion plethysmography, sir.
You can try to do the venous occlusion plethysmography. Which law is this one?
The Ohm's law.
Ohm's law. Okay. What is the importance of knowing this number?
Flow can be determined.
Flow, sir. Whether it is laminar or turbulent.
It helps us to predict whether the flow is laminar or it is
Turbulent.
okay. So what is the cutoff value? Less than
2000.
Greater than 3000.
between it will be indeterminate. Okay. So what is the applied aspect for this? We hear bruit, we hear murmurs, we hear correct sounds. In measurement of blood pressure, all that is because of streamline getting converted into turbulent. Okay. Very strange sound. What is the difference between velocity and flow?
Velocity is the displacement per unit time, whereas flow is volume displacement per unit time, sir.
So what is the unit for velocity?
Velocity is centimeter per second, whereas flow is centimeter cube per second.
Okay, so you should remember this, right? Let us leave. Let me give somebody else a chance. Kavya Priya. Who is Kavya Priya?
Yes, sir.
Entama ide?
It is to determine the circulation time, sir. We inject bile salts in antecubital vein, and the bitter test. It takes total time 15 seconds, sir.
From where to where now?
From injecting to the site of endpoint, that is tongue.
Where you are injecting? Nose, ekkada?
Antecubital vein, sir.
Adi ekkada undamma?
In forearm.
So arm to tongue circulation. So this we call it as normal arm to tongue circulation time. Okay. So injected, we don't inject bile salt, we inject a preparation of bile salt, right? So that is the thing. Monica, roll number 86. Cheppu. Roll number 86, Monica. Emma, unnava, nidrapoyava? Roll number 86. Are you able to hear me? All of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Roll number 86. Hello. Roll number 86. Roll number 84. Roll number 84. Roll number 94, Niharika. I'm noting down all these numbers. That's a different issue. Those who are not responding. Roll number 94. Moksha.
Yes, sir.
చెప్పమ్మా ఏంటిది? చెప్పమ్మా. Moksha, what is this? Moksha, you're there?
Yes, sir. I don't know, sir.
Okay. It's okay, man. You can just go back and see. Kavya Priya, roll number 57.
Yes, sir.
Tell me, man, what is this?
Poisson-Hagen formula, sir. We determine the flow in a tube that is equal to the pressure difference between two ends of a tube into pi by 8 into
Pi by
1
8.
by
Into pi by 8 at pi r to the power 4.
pi r power 4 by 8 eta L. Eta is viscosity, whereas L is length of the tube.
And how you got this R is equal to 8 eta L by pi r4?
That is flow is equals to pressure by resistance, sir. So if we apply that here, then resistance is equals to 8 eta L by pi r power 4.
Resistance is equal to pressure by flow.
Resistance is equals to pressure by flow. So we apply here in the place of flow, we apply pressure by resistance. So resistance is equals to, we will get 8 eta L by.
Final take home message.
Flow is directly proportional to 4th power radius, and resistance is inversely proportional to the 4th power of radius.
So the next question you all have to understand is, what are the factors which determine the radius? So you all know from our discussion that single most important factor which determines the radius is the vascular smooth muscle tone. Vascular smooth muscle tone is in turn influenced by vasoconstrictors and vasodilators, of which there are many vasoconstrictors and vasodilators. Okay, so one diagram I made you all to take, where we showed a comprehensive slide where showing all the factors which are trying to influence the vascular smooth muscle tone, either to make it to constrict, therefore reduce the radius, or dilate and therefore increase the radius. Okay, so that Poisson-Hagen's formula is very important. What is this? Who is roll number 16? Brighty. Roll number 16, Brighty. Roll number 137, Sidra. So many people are not responding. Huh? So I don't know what's going on. Sidra,
Yes, sir.
tell me,
Sir,
what is this one?
microcirculation,
Hmm.
sir, artery and the arterial end. There is a layer of smooth muscle, precapillary sphincter,
Hmm.
and the arterial end of the capillary, then the capillary bed, and venous end of the capillary, and venule, and then vein, small vein.
So, what is this thoroughfare vessel, ma?
So when capillary bed is blocked, the blood flow directly from the meta-arteriole to the venule.
No, it is not blocked, ma. When it is inactive or at rest.
Inactive, yes, sir.
At resting
Yes, sir,
condition,
inactive.
resting condition, then these are collapsed, and then blood will flow directly from arteriole to venule. Okay, via this thoroughfare vessels. Okay. So the most important discussion here was about the transport across the capillary wall. How to classify capillaries? How did we classify capillaries?
Based on the endothelium.
The type of endothelium.
Sir.
Okay. So let me give a chance to others also. Roll number 22, Charani. They are acting as if they don't hear, or they're really not hearing, or what is going on? I don't know. Huh? Roll number 22. She is there. Roll number 22. Roll number 95. Roll number 95 is there. Hello. Bala. Yeah, roll number 95. Roll number 95. Roll number 29.
Yes, sir.
Tell me, what is this? What are the types of capillaries, Divya?
Sir, capillaries are of three types: continuous, fenestrated, and one more is sinusoid. Continuous capillaries are further divided into two types. They are with or without tight junction. With tight junction, they are found in brain and testes. In brain, there is a blood-brain barrier requires because there we have to maintain a constant environment around the neurons to perform well, to generate impulses. And in testes, for spermatogenesis, there is a barrier required known as testes barrier. And the fenestrated
barrier.
And the fenestrated capillaries are found in kidneys, and there's the size of the fenestration is maintained by the pericytes. And in kidney, this size is maintained by mesangial cells, and sinusoids are large.
Mesangial cells. Mesangial cells.
Okay, so mesangial cells, and last one is sinusoidal. These are the capillaries in which the size is in endothelium, large size of pores are present, and this is found in liver.
Okay, excellent, good. So roll number 101. Roll number 101.
వింటున్నామ్మా.
Roll number 101. Roll number 143. Let's do one thing, okay? This is going beyond imagination. I want you all to quickly switch on your videos. Huh? Please switch on your videos, all of you. Roll number 94 is not there. 94. Roll number 94. Roll number 92. Namaste. Such a friend. Okay. Okay. అజెండా ఏమైనా చెప్పారండి? Okay. Who is this 1+ here? Kalyani. Tell me. I'd asked for something. Roll number 55. You are answering, no? Did you answer anything, Kalyani?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then what's happening to this kids? Roll number 16 is that? Roll number 16. Only police పనులు చేసుకొని కూర్చోవాలండి. ఉండే పనులు చాలక nonsense we have to do. Okay, you can, it's up to you. Please, you can switch off your videos if you want. See, it's not very difficult or anything. You all have to make some effort to read. Okay. So just coming and sitting in the online classes and thinking that your academic activity is over for the day, that is not the way, is it not? You need to go back and put in some effort. It's not very difficult if you make an effort. See, some student may be able to finish it with one reading. Another may have to read 3 or 4 times. But basic thing is that effort has to be put, is it not? It is not some rocket science or something. You are not the first person to be reading this, and you are also not the last person. We all have struggled with these concepts, there is no doubt. Okay. So just by reading once or twice and then discussing with your friends on the phone, you will be able to get some more clarity on the concepts which are being presented here. My sincere request to all of you is please make an effort. Don't give up. Okay, we are at home. This is beyond me. Too much is going on. These are all excuses we can come up with. Classes are online. It is going very fast. I am unable to understand. Don't come up with excuses. The need of the hour with the current situation in the country or in the world is to innovate. We need to move forward. We can't just be stagnated here. Okay, so there are two things we can do. Either we say we'll stop all the classes. Once you come back, we'll do it physically. And then what is going to happen? You are all going to lose some time. That you all don't want, is it not? So when you don't want to lose time, then the other alternate which is available for us is you have to go for this online class. The solution may not be an ideal solution, but it is the only one we have now. So we have to move forward. We have to make use of the existing technology. The most weirdest thing I have done in my life is to speak into a computer teaching. Literally, like this, like I'm teaching my laptop for the past 2 years. But what to do? The show has to go on. Okay, but when you come online, you just switch on the thing and keep it towards the wall or in front of some animal in your house. When I'm asking you the questions, if you're not answering, if you don't know, it is okay. Believe me, seriously, if you don't know any concept, it is okay with me. Not responding is what scares me. Right? So please make an effort. Don't give up. Make use of the time which you all have. All of us are the same 24 hours. So we discussed about the movement across the capillary wall. How does Harshita, how does transport take place across the wall? Please unmute yourself, ma.
Sir, through diffusion, vesicular transport, and
through diffusion, vesicular transport, and filtration. Filtration. Okay.
Yes,
so how does the process of filtration take place? We are putting forward one hypothesis, not we, one great man called as Starling has put forward this hypothesis. What is the name given to these forces?
Starling forces.
How many are there? How many Starling forces are there?
Four forces are there, but actually two are there.
Hydrostatic pressure in capillary and interstitial, colloidal osmotic pressure in capillary and interstitial.
Yeah, you have hydrostatic pressure in the capillary, hydrostatic pressure in the interstitial space. Colloidal osmotic pressure in the capillaries and colloidal osmotic pressure in the interstitial space. So the pressure gradient, because the two hydrostatic pressures are acting in opposite direction, the two colloidal osmotic pressures are acting in opposite direction. We subtract the two pressures and then subtract gradients from each other. So like I told you in the last class, this is called as the hydrostatic pressure gradient. This one is the colloidal osmotic pressure gradient. We minus from each other, okay? And then we calculate. So I've given you an example where we have seen the forces acting. So in this example, we saw that at the arterial end, it is 11 millimeters of mercury, and in the venous end, it is 9. So there is a difference of 2 millimeters, means slight excess of fluid is coming into the interstitial space. What is that excess fluid called as?
Lymph
is having so many functions. Lymphatics are having so many functions. To remove the tissue fluid, remove the proteins, absorption of long chain fatty acids and cholesterol from the intestine. Okay, so then we spoke about edema. So there are roughly around 4 causes for edema. Hydrostatic pressure gradient increases, colloidal osmotic pressure gradient decreases, or the capillary permeability increases, or the lymphatic drainage is going to be blocked. So if you understood those forces, you'll be able to correlate what I have told you. Okay. Then we looked at shear stress, gene activation, vascular hindrance, Farias-Lindquist effect. Anything in this you have not understood. Critical closing pressure is very frequently asked. And this one, diffusion limited and flow limited substances also very frequently asked. Between X and Y, which is diffusion limited and which is flow limited?
X
This
is
is
flow limited,
flow
Y is
Limited.
diffusion limited.
It is coming in equilibrium or not coming in equilibrium?
Sir,
X is coming in equilibrium, Y is not
Not coming in equilibrium,
Y
but
is
it
not
is
in equilibrium.
diffusion limited.
diffuser limited. Yes.
Okay. So anything else you want to ask me? I'm not very happy. Heterometric regulation is bar raaledu. Pacemaker potential bar raaledu chaala mandi. Yeah. Anything you want to ask me? Anything in cardiovascular system till now? Or else I'll end the session. Free for all. Anything in any other chapter in physiology, please feel free to ask. Maybe I'll note down, you can give the questions to the class representatives and we'll try to have a discussion on those topics or concepts in the tutorials. Next thing I'll be talking will be about cardiovascular regulatory mechanisms. Okay, so you can regulate the pumping activity of the heart. You can regulate the arterial diameter. You can regulate the size of the veins, the capacitance vessels you can regulate. Pump you can alter, arterial you can caliber, you can monitor, capacitance vessels. So this is vasoconstriction, vasodilatation. Here it is by venoconstriction, venodilation. How it is done? Okay, so you have so many substances. So locally produced from the endothelium, then circulating, then neural. Okay, so with this background, yes, you can read and come. I'll continue in the next class. Anything at all you want to ask me, please feel free.
Excuse me, sir.
Any other chapter? Yeah, tell me.
Sir, why does eye puffing is specific to renal disorder? Eye puffing edema specific in renal disorder?
This is still not known. Why in a patient with renal disorder, most often this presents with puffiness around the face. You don't know, maybe periorbital, some changes are going on. Then the next question that should be asked is, why in the periorbital area only it is happening? Not known. But definitely there is a link. Any patient wakes up with puffiness of the face in the morning. One of the, especially children, one of the thing you have to think in them is it could be the pedal, the nephrotic syndrome.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Anything else? Any other chapter also? Please feel free to ask me. The doubts you can tell the class representatives, Moksha, Harshita, and Samhita. Unarande, Mukuru? All three are there. Now you can ask your friends any doubts in the other chapters in physiology which is going on, and you can come back to it. Right? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Somebody has asked me, can you please explain pulmonary capillary wedge pressure? This is Harshita. Harshita, roll number 43. Unnarama?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Harshita, did you read about this, Harshita, capillary wedge pressure?
Sir, I read a little bit, sir, in relation to like pulmonary blood flow.
Anybody can explain what is pulmonary capillary wedge pressure? I don't usually see the messages. Okay, so next time I request you to just unmute yourself and ask the doubt, please. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what is this pulmonary capillary wedge pressure? Anybody?
So I
So
can try.
it's a catheter wedged inside of the pulmonary arterial branch, and it measures the pressure of left atrium.
So, Fagun, why is it called as pulmonary capillary wedge pressure? It measures the left atrial pressure. I agree that, but why this name has been given to it as pulmonary capillary wedge pressure?
So because the left atrial pressure is transmitted via the pulmonary, it is transmitted to the pulmonary capillary.
Okay. Anybody else?
Pulmonary catheter is introduced in capillary.
The right sides.
No, one by one, please.
Pulmonary catheter is introduced in the capillary.
Who's this?
Sir, roll number 4, Anjum, sir.
Okay. And inkosari alochinchu. Good, but just keep thinking. Anybody else?
It is introduced at the pulmonary artery, sir. Catheter.
Same catheter.
I don't know, sir.
So pulmonary catheter in a pulmonary arterial branch.
There is no pulmonary catheter. It is all cardiac catheterization only. Okay.
Squam gauge catheter. Squam gauge catheter.
Swan-Ganz, G-A-N-Z. Okay, it's a Swan-Ganz. See, before, initially when they were doing this cardiac catheterization, they used to go via the vein. So they used to introduce into the arm, and at the tip of the catheter, one balloon used to be the small balloon. They'll inflate that balloon, and the flow of blood, because the venous blood flows towards the heart, it used to pull it towards the heart. Okay, so you're entering into the right atrium. From the right atrium, next where you'll go if you push the catheter down further?
Right ventricle. Right ventricle.
Then from the right ventricle, where it will go?
It enters into the pulmonary artery.
From the pulmonary artery, you will enter into the pulmonary circulation. What happens is, at one point, you're trying to go into the left atrium, but it is not. Now you can go. Either if you do the catheterization via the artery, you can go against the blood flow, and you can enter via the aorta into the left ventricle, and you can, at the root of the aorta, the coronary arteries are there, you can do the coronary angiogram. But initially, other way of entering into the circulation is by entering via the veins. When you go there via the veins, and you reach this point, the catheter, as you thread it, as you push it into the pulmonary circulation, because the pulmonary circulation is so narrow, at one point it will get stuck in the pulmonary circulation. Beyond that point, they will not push it. Getting stuck is called as to get wedged, W-E-D-G-E-D. So you have, in the olden days, when the door was banging, they used to put a small wooden piece in between so that the door will not close. Okay, that is a wedge. A similar thing here is happening. The catheter is going to get stuck in the pulmonary capillaries, and beyond that, it can't move. So what has happened, beyond the catheter, all the flow has stopped, and the pressure from the left atrium is coming back and hitting the catheter. So by measuring pulmonary capillary wedge pressure, you are measuring the left atrial pressure. And why it is called as pulmonary capillary wedge pressure? Wedge means the catheter is wedged or stuck there. Why it is stuck there in the pulmonary circulation? Because the pulmonary circulation is very narrow. Catheter lumen diameter is more. It cannot be threaded beyond that point. Clear? Emma, roll number 42. Arthamainda?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anything else?
Sir.
43. Chabama. First, you identify yourself.
So why in case of mixed edema, the patient is not resistant to coolness?
Who's this?
So 168, sir, Varshita.
Varshita. Actually, when you are taught about endocrinology, you will be taught about this. But thyroid hormones help us to maintain the normal basal metabolic rate in the body. So if the thyroid hormones are not there, the basal metabolic rate is going to decrease. If the basal metabolic rate is going to decrease, what is going to decrease? Why does the basal metabolic rate decrease?
Cardiac out.
No, we'll not go there. Heat production is less. Ante kadamma? If basal metabolic rate is less, ante means amount of heat which is being produced in the body is less. So if the heat production is less in the body, this person will be very uncomfortable in a cold environment. You put him in Tirupati in the hot summer, he will be very, very happy. I always tell my students this. We had gone to Kodaikanal, as a class trip during our MBBS. And one of our friends, we all were shivering. This was in February. And this guy was going around with his banyan, happily. Cut banyan, adi kuda. We were wondering. Then we realized, okay, this guy is suffering from hyperthyroidism. Hyperthyroidism, what is going to happen? The reverse. There is
More
going to
basal
be
metabolic rate, more heat production.
excess of thyroid hormones. BMR is going to increase. There is going to be more heat production. So this guy was very cool in the cold weather of Kodaikanal, whereas we poor normal people, we were all shivering. And that is the reason why there is cold intolerance in hypothyroidism, and the reverse is heat intolerance in hyperthyroidism. It's all got to do with the fact that thyroid hormones will regulate the metabolic rate in the body.
Sir, there is no other way to get out of this, sir.
I didn't get you.
Sir, hormonal balance. How can they maintain the hormonal balance to get out of this?
Get out of it and treatment.
Yes, sir.
Common sense. Any hormone deficiency, what you are going to do? Common sense. Give that hormone.
Give that hormone.
Yeah, hormone deficiency, give that hormone. So we give supplements of L-troxin, synthetic T4, around 100 to 110 micrograms per day. L-troxin on its preparation only, we give that. And we should be careful that we don't give too much. If you give too much from hypo, we will push him into hyper state. So we'll measure the TSH. TSH should be brought back to normal. That much we will give. And if there is hyperthyroidism, we give anti-thyroid drugs, or we operate on the thyroid gland and reduce its size. ఎక్కడికో పోతుంది కార్డియోవాస్కులర్ సిస్టమ్ గురించి అడిగితే బాగుంటుందేమో. Still good doubt. Any other doubts? Why that edema in hypothyroidism is non-pitting?
So because the edema is not due to free fluid state. The edema is not due to free fluid state. There are two contents in the interstitial space, that is gel substance and free fluid.
Then what is the edema due to?
Gel substance.
What is the gel substance?
It consists of proteoglycans, the threads, then
myxomatous tissue. Previously, the gel substance was called as myxomatous tissue. Chondroitin sulfate, proteoglycans, so many other components, mucopolysaccharides, all of which accumulate in the interstitial space and also draw water and become gel-like. So if you press, they are not going to get displaced. Okay. Endocrinology class అయిపోతుంది. Anything else you want to ask me in the cardiovascular system if you are having time? అన్నిటికీ తల ఊపుతారో ఆన్సర్ చెప్తారు, but you don't write it. I want all my students to be answering. Is it wrong on my part to be so selfish that I want all 177 to be doing well and getting distinction? Anything here you have not understood, you tell me in these things. What is this slide showing you?
Spread of
Conducting
action.
system of heart.
Spread of
Conducting system of heart.
So the transmission of excitation. How the conducting system is active, excitation. Series of excitation of tissue.
Spread of excitation in the heart kadama. One of my favorite animation in cardiovascular physiology, electrophysiology. What is the name of this diagram? Yeah, tell me.
So Vigor's diagram.
Vigor's diagram.
Somebody had another doubt.
Sir, I had the sir. Oncotic pressure is called so because it leads to swelling. So oncotic pressure or the colloidal osmotic pressure is called oncotic pressure because it leads to swelling, sir.
Which book says this?
Sir, I just found the meaning of oncos as swelling. So I was just asking, sir, why is oncos?
Just look again.
Okay, sir.
What are these areas here?
It is legs.
We are trying to do one new experiment. Because of the COVID situation, we want to start your clinical physiology, but we don't want to do it on any normal human being, normal subject. Usually we take to demonstrate. So I think Dr. Sharwani has come up with an idea. We demonstrate on mannequins. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I wanted to do it yesterday, but I was so tired. So maybe next week I'll start the clinical physiology part. If you can talk to your seniors, and you have been given the case sheet for cardiovascular system.
Yes, sir.
In general physical examination also you have been given the case sheet.
Yes, sir.
What is this diagram?
Heart lung
separation.
Is it?
Frank Starling curve, sir.
Family of
This is used to explain
homometric regulation, sir.
Malla Starling anta.
Homometric
regulation, sir.
Heterometric regulation is Starling's law, or homometric regulation is Starling's law? Frank Starling's law.
Heterometric is Starling's law.
What is the other name for homometric?
Myocardial
inotropic.
Myocardial contractility or inotropic. This is one of my favorite thing, because whatever you read in cardiovascular physiology, it's all interlinked. One concept is interlinked with the other concept. Okay, so my very favorite and I feel important slide for you all. So heart rate into stroke volume is cardiac output. Cardiac output determines arterial pressure. It is also determined by peripheral resistance. Arterial pressure determines afterload. Afterload in turn is going to determine the myocardial fiber shortening, which influences stroke volume. Arterial pressure determines left ventricular size. That in turn determines stroke volume. Myocardial fiber shortening is determined by preload, afterload, and myocardial contractility. So all a web of interconnection between the various parameters. If you are able to think through and understand this interconnection, entire concepts in cardiovascular physiology will become easy for you. So this is shift to right and shift to left. Systolic dysfunction and diastolic dysfunction. measurement. This is which method?
Dye dilution.
This is a modification of dye dilution method.
Sir, thermodilution.
In hospital, how is the cardiac output measured usually?
Color
Doppler.
Aditya, first chip.
echocardiography with color Doppler.
I think I'll quickly end this. Okay, so we know about this, and these concepts you already discussed. Okay, so class representatives can call me with any doubts on the other chapters in physiology. Thank you. Have a nice Sunday. Chepama.
Sir, digitalis will increase heart rate, na sir?
Digitalis will increase heart rate or force of contraction.
But here they are saying digitalis will reduce heart rate by promoting AV nodal delay.
Digitalis will increase heart rate or increase force of contraction.
Yes, sir.
Digitalis will do two things. Digitalis will slow down the heart. Digitalis will increase the force of contraction. Usually we use it to increase the force of contraction in patient with congestive cardiac failure, where the heart is not pumping with enough force. Then we use digitalis. So digitalis acts by blocking the, complete that sentence.
Sodium, potassium,
ATPase form.
So intracellular sodium will increase. So exchange is not there between sodium and calcium. So intracellular calcium also will increase. So if intracellular calcium in the cell increases, what is going to happen?
Force of contraction increases.
Contraction increases. So that is how the force of contraction is. And like you also told, digitalis is going to increase or prolong the AV nodal delay. So the impulse transmission from the atria to the ventricle is going to be blocked. So heart slows down. So by slowing down the heart and increasing the pumping activity, it balances the cardiac output.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else you want to ask me, please feel free. Start reading with more concentration. We want all of you to be involved in the